It's the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. For more on the Seminoles, including Osceola's coverage from veteran Seminole insiders, message boards, Osceola virtual happy hours, and more, go to theosceola.com. And right now, enter the code FSU20 and get 20% off your annual subscription. That's FSU20.
Hello and welcome to another post-game edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines podcast. My name is Patrick Burnham. I'm a football writer for the Osceola and the host of today's show. I am joined today by Osceola publisher Jerry Kutz, Osceola editor Bob Ferrante, and Osceola football analyst and former FSU offensive lineman Mark Salva to talk about FSU's 31-28 win over fifth-ranked North Carolina on Saturday night in Doak Campbell Stadium. All right, guys, it was an interesting and entertaining night at Doak Campbell Stadium. Florida State got an exciting victory. It was plays being made from start to finish, from the first drive to the last, as FSU, again, upsets North Carolina for a 31-28 victory. Guys, one of the things we got a lot to cover and hope we get a chance to cover it all. But one of the things I want to talk about is we spent a lot of time the last couple of years talking about toughness, mental toughness, physical toughness, effort, togetherness, and intensity of this football team. And we're starting to see some improvement in this area, I think. And it's a change we thought we would see based off what we saw from Mike Norvell and his staff coaching in the spring. And I don't think you can stress enough how far behind the lack of spring practice put this football team, being a disciplined football team and understanding what they're trying to do on offense and defense. And another thing we've talked about over the last year and a half, Mark, has been complementary football. And I just want to see, are we starting to see those things? Because I'm under the belief that we are starting to see those type of things, and I've got several examples of that. But, Mark, I want to start with you. From that standpoint, with this team playing tougher, more physical, and together, what did you see that on Saturday night?
Unquestionably. I think the biggest thing we wanted to see coming into this week and really throughout the year was just improvement week over week, and just signs that this team was trying to break through the culture of the past 3 or 4 years. And this was a huge jumping point in that. And to your point, losing spring practice and the ability of the coaching staff to instill their method and their culture. We're having to catch up. To see the response from the defense and to see a team, mentally fight through some tough situations, I think just does so much, because not only did we go through these tough times, but we won the game. And I can't underscore how important that is, how important it is as a coach to have that opportunity to go to these guys and say, yeah, we won the game. Look what we could do better. How good can we be? And then for the team to see that and to buy in and to work that much harder to push through and become a better football team. So I agree.
Bob, what do you think on the overall look of the team right now?
It's as good as it's looked in years. We've seen bits and pieces of, I think, memorable performances by Florida State. You look back to the win at Boston College last year, what they did with Odell taking over the team on short notice. You look at what he did even in 2017, that first time as interim head coach. But this is, I think, the most resounding win against a top 5, top 10 team since the last one, which was Michigan in the Orange Bowl, to have to battle against a really good team all the way to the finish and gut one out. And that's what they did on Saturday night. It was really, it was a nail biter. We were rewriting our stories on deadline. It wasn't a lot of fun, but I tell you, it made for a really memorable night, I think, for everybody that was either there or watching on TV.
Jerry?
Yeah, I think what I've seen is the defense, and particularly the defensive front last night, played with tremendous effort. They chased the ball, they penetrated, and the attitude was terrific on the defense. As far as the season goes, I think the injection of Jordan Travis into the offense gave the whole team a spark. think he excites you. If you're a defensive player, he gives you hope. And, those are the things I'm seeing. They're playing and having fun. And that's really encouraging.
Yeah, it seemed like Florida State football to me as far as the effort and in fact, of the several phone calls and texts that I've gotten since last night, that almost to a man, the first thing that they said was, I have not seen FSU play with that much effort in a very long time, and it was refreshing to see that. You did see guys hustling all over the field, in particular, as you mentioned, Jerry. I want to get into it in a second, the defense. But again, I think this team continues to get tougher, played a complementary football. The offense helped the defense out when it needed to, and vice versa. And I do want to get into the defense now. We have spent a lot of time talking about the defense in the first 4 games, and the most of it, other than the second half of the Jacksonville State game, has not been very positive. And listen, it was not perfect against UNC. They gave up 558 yards again, but they came up big when they needed to. And Jerry, you've referred to them as a bend but not break defense, and we also saw the evidence of that on Saturday night. They did give up a lot of yards, but did not break, and they did a lot of chasing. And they chased. You saw defensive linemen on the screen on the sidelines when plays were on the perimeter. You saw guys chasing the ball. But the defense in the first half, guys, they had a sack in the first quarter on a third down play that knocked North Carolina out of field goal range. They had a 4th down and 1 stop with UNC in or near the red zone. And obviously you had the pick by Kando to put you up 24-7. In the second half, they did not play as good. Obviously you have up 21 second half points. But again, they came up big when they needed to, ahead 31-7, a 4th down and goal stop. And then after that errant throw by Travis that gave UNC at the ball about the 30-yard line, they forced a 3 and out, and UNC missed a field goal. So, all those plays ultimately in a game this close were very important. But want to get y'all's take specifically on the defense and what you guys saw from that unit on Saturday night. And Bob, I'll start with you this time.
Played really, really well in situations. 2 of 11 on third down. 0 for 3 UNC was on 4th down. Some of the huge 4th down stops. The one on the goal line was pretty massive. Of course, the one at the end of the game, it was a drop by UNC, but hey, it still counts as a stop.
That's right.
The effort, as you guys have mentioned, I think we didn't see this kind of defensive line effort in the first 4 games. We saw more out of them in 60 minutes than the prior games combined. I was worried when, Corey Durden had the targeting and they were down numbers on the interior without True Thompson and Fabian Lovett. But then you had Dennis Briggs, opting back in. And Josh Kando's quote was awesome. He said it was almost like free agency that they got Dennis Briggs back there. And that was huge to have that. So the effort, the situational performances were incredible. And I think just seeing guys play their best game of the year in a night game at home against a top 5 opponent, it just kind of felt like everything really came together.
Yeah, and to your point, Marvin Wilson, Joshua Kando, and Janarius Robinson combined for 12 stops on Saturday night against North Carolina, which they each had 1 tackle apiece against Notre Dame. And they get a lot of similar run plays, but they showed up on Saturday night against North Carolina. And Mark, I want just your impressions of Marvin Wilson.
I was pleased to see it. Last week we talked about how important it was for the defense to come out with a response, to show a little pride, especially that front group. And man, those guys delivered. And it was so good to see, for me, especially as an alum, to say, you know what, that's Seminole football. That's a defensive line trying to wreck an offense. And I mean, I thought Janarius Robinson played out of his mind. I thought Kando played great. Marvin was everywhere. And the hustle and the effort was what we expect. It's the standard. And moving forward, I hope, and I'm confident that we will, duplicate that. I think North Carolina probably got a false sense of security watching Notre Dame and the games prior, and probably came out and said, we'll have our way. And, we said, no, not today. And for that, I tip my cap to these guys and thankful that they came out with that kind of response.
Yeah, the Briggs opting back in was timely, particularly given the fact that Lovett and True Thompson were missing from the start of this game. And really, Dennis was he was very good early, very productive early. He saw the defensive line getting some penetration into the backfield off the snap, and Dennis did a good job of that. Of course, I think Dennis is going to be a very talented, good football player for Florida State. He's just got he's explosive and plays with great leverage. Anyways, that was timely for FSU and certainly benefited them as Durden was tossed from the game after his late second quarter targeting call. Jerry, kind of talk about your thoughts on the defense. You had Steven Dix get his first start at linebacker, led the team in tackles, and looks like it's his position to man from here on out.
Yeah, that's he's going to make some mistakes at times, and he did Saturday, but overall you got a guy there you can grow with. And I thought even Lundy got a lot of playing time and some important situations. So it's encouraging to see the enthusiasm on defense. That's the big thing. We got to see a bunch of younger players. Brownlee played a lot in the secondary and made some plays. So it's encouraging on defense. I just feel like there's excellent morale right now over there.
Yeah, and of course, one of the things that really helped FSU on that, as Bob alluded to, was a 3rd down and 4th down conversion. I think they were 2 of 15 total, or 2 of 14 in that regard of 3rd and 4th down conversions. But one of the things that really helped FSU was the resurgence of its sack attack and being able to pressure the quarterback. We had 4 sacks on Saturday night. The stats department at the game only credited FSU with 4 pressures, but I guarantee you when we look at the coach's copy, there's going to be at least twice that many. They kept Sam Howell moving, kept him uncomfortable. They held him to 55% of completion percentage. He came into the game almost at 69%. Looked very pedestrian in the first half. Now, he got hot in the second half, and that was bound to happen. He's a talented kid, and he's got some really good skill players around him. But, Bob, talk about the presence of the pass rush.
It had almost been missing in action, I think, especially in the FBS games, because Florida State only had 1 sack, and that was against Georgia Tech. Nothing against Miami. Again, that's a great mobile quarterback, but it didn't happen. Ian Book, same thing. Showed his mobility. Florida State couldn't get home, couldn't pressure. We really had big questions about this defensive front after Notre Dame, and especially after Miami too. And, for them to just harass Sam Howell, who showed his escapability too and made some big plays with his feet and creating some opportunities for him. But, now this team up front has a lot of confidence moving forward. Wish we hadn't seen it all year, but I think this is a huge building block for the rest of the season if they can turn this performance over to Louisville and beyond.
Mark, I got one question for you, and I'm not trying to bring it from a negative standpoint, but why do you think it took the defensive line so long with the potential that these guys have and athleticism that they have? I mean, we saw on Saturday night why Marvin Wilson was considered one of the best defensive tackles coming into the season. You go back and look at that punt he deflected and just tremendous effort, sold himself out. You saw that a lot from him. What do you think? Is it just more time in this defense, buying into the system, buying into the culture, or just getting repetitions in the system?
That's a great question. People have been asking me what's going on with our defense, especially our defensive front. And I was at a loss because we knew the potential these guys had. I think is a combination. I think the scheme going into this week was a little more aggressive. I saw a little more stunning during the course of the game, especially up front, both on run and pass downs. I think that helped turn these guys loose a little bit. But I got to think, remember, these guys are relatively kids, right? They're 18 to 22-year-olds. And mentally, it's incredible how when you make up your mind and challenge a kid's pride, how much better, how much more effort you can get. I think I heard a commentary during the course of the game. I think it was Blackledge said that, in talking with the defense, that the defensive coaches, that they said, if you think they're telling the kids, if you think you're playing hard, you're not. They're learning how to do that. Even some of our older guys, they don't know. And that's why I think this performance is so important, because they see the result of the effort they put in, and they can do even more than they think they're capable of. And really, that's the job of a coach, is to strain a player's potential. And I think for the first time in a long time, we saw our guys really strain during the course of a game and push through some tough times, especially late. So it's a combination of things.
You know what? That's the first thing. The first word I thought this morning when I started watching it was they are straining to get to the ball, wherever it's at. They're straining. It was fun to see and fun to watch, and I hope we continue to see it. I do want to move on to our next talking point. And, guys, I have a feeling we're going to be talking a lot about this person as the season moves on. But that is Jordan Travis. He had another tremendous game. His stats weren't great from a passing standpoint, but he was productive when he did it. Obviously, he was the second leading rusher on the team. And, listen, you're impressed with his playmaking ability, but you're also impressed with the toughness and the way he competes, and that just continued this week. And I've got several examples, but he did a great job of making plays for FSU, extending plays with his legs, and in the quarterback run game. And, Jerry, I'm going to let you start with Jordan. Kind of give me your second impression of Jordan after his second game as a starter.
Well, like I said before, he gives you a spark. He does make things happen with all that you said, his feet, his instincts, his feel. It kind of reminds me, I hate to use this example, but Ward had that ability to sense pressure and spin out and extend plays. And you see that with Travis. In every game, there's 2 or 3 which you think are sure sacks that he's able to extend. And then he makes good decisions now. He's starting to make better decisions with one exception Saturday. He made a lot of good decisions. And so he seems to be getting better. That's probably the best thing I can say.
Jerry, I think the word you're looking for there is poise.
Yeah.
Right. So,
for sure.
Pat, you mentioned competitiveness and toughness. I see poise and a calmness that I think he brings to the whole team, and that comes from the confidence that he has in his ability. Let me give you a great illustration about that. I know you have some too. I saw one that really stuck out to me, and that was on the long pass to Helton that set us up to go 7.
Yes.
So that was a RPO, right?
Yeah.
So we had 2 receivers on the left. We had Helton on the right, and he faked it, and his eyes are looking at that. We were talking earlier about that defender that you're reading, right? The guys that if he steps up, he's going to throw the slant. If he steps back, he's going to hand the ball, right? Well, the guy kind of played that in-between area, and he took a few steps up, and he was going to throw the slant to Helton right at first, but he was covered. Helton ran a crappy route, all right? He kind of rounded it off and just kind of drifted to the inside, and he was covered. And he was getting ready to throw it, and he stopped. And he bought time. That's when Helton came around and cut back to the outside and was uncovered. And Travis bought time and made that throw. Now
and he got drilled after he made the throw.
Yeah, he got drilled after
he had 2 guys bearing down on him. So that may put I think we can. Everybody talks about his arm strength, but it was strong enough to throw from 1 foot and throw I think 50-yard pass essentially.
Yeah, but I think that just illustrates to me his decision making and his ability to understand the situation and what he's trying to do, and for him to not throw the ball right there and it become a bad play, a batted ball, or an incomplete, or even worse. Made the decision not to do it, bought time, and ended up being a huge play to put us up 17-0. A few plays after that. I thought there were examples like that all throughout the game.
And Mark, let me add to that. Against Notre Dame, when he threw the interception at the goal line. It was intended for Helton. And that was another example of not a very well run route. And I almost wonder if Jordan might have learned from that. Yeah,
that's very possible.
So, well, I'm going to tell you what, you used Charlie Ward as an example, Jerry. Yeah. I've got an off the wall example. I think he may be a dual threat Danny McManus with his toughness, the way that he makes his teammates better, the way the offensive line plays for him. Now, of course, Danny's one of my favorite quarterbacks, and I like, he was not the most talented, physically gifted player in the world, but he had those things that you could not see or feel. I mean, they were feel things, right? The intangibles. And I think Jordan does have some of that. The ball fake on the first touchdown run was phenomenal. I mean, that play is stopped in the tracks if he does not delay that fake that makes that defensive end take that one step too many inside, and Jordan's out the gate. And, of course, then you got to give the staff some credit. They really did. Our keys to victory was taking advantage of those one-on-one coverage opportunities, and they did that. The throw to Warren Thompson down the sideline versus man-free coverage where the safety was too far over the top to get over to that side of the field. I mean, that was a teardrop throw. It was a professional football throw, and of course set up another touchdown. I believe that put us up 31-7 at the half. So I mean, he just continues to be impressive. I think this is clearly his team now. Does anybody disagree with that?
No, let me just interject there. You mentioned, Pat, that he reminded you of Danny McManus in that the whole team plays for him. And I wanted to agree with that and talk to the guy who Danny McManus had his hands under.
We're intimate.
Nobody is more intimately involved with Danny than.
This is a family show, guys.
But Mark, you can talk about that. How Danny, the team really played for him and he pulled that whole unit together, didn't he?
He did. You know what it is? It's that notion that people don't care how much you know till you know how much they care, right? Jordan Travis is in it for the team. Jordan Travis is not in it for Jordan Travis. And you can't fake that, right? You can't fake that. And I imagine him, I don't know him, but I imagine he exudes that on the practice field. He probably exudes that in the dorm, at meals, He's not about Jordan Travis, and you can't help but fight for a guy like that and feel good that that he's doing it for the right reasons. And that's the essence to me of leadership. When your leader is in it to make you better, you fight for that guy. And I think that resonates throughout the whole team.
Yep. Well, any final thoughts on Jordan? I have a feeling we're going to be having this conversation a lot the last 5 weeks of the year.
Just stay healthy.
Yeah, no doubt. In fact, I talked to one of our other Osceola football analysts, Wally Burnham, this morning. That's exactly what he said. He goes, listen, they got a chance with that kid playing quarterback. Now they got to figure out a way to use him the smart way, keep him as healthy as you possibly can. All right, guys, Jordan rules still, and I think he may rule for the rest of the season here. But want to move on to another unit that and a group of guys that just keeps on improving. Probably the most improved unit on the team, the FSU offensive line. Guys, they produced over 241 rushing yards against North Carolina. They continue to validate that success in the run game we saw against not only Jacksonville State, but also the 153 yards they had against Notre Dame. LaDainian Webb, 12 carries for 109 yards. Jordan Travis, 16 for 107. Mark, they seem to look more comfortable playing together. It's the second week in a row this particular starting group has been in there. And to me, they look like you've talked about this physical demeanor that you would like to see them have. And they look to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more confident and sure of themselves as they continue to move forward in this offense. What do you have to say about the offensive line after this week?
Well, I want to officially nominate Alex Atkins for the Broyles Award. I mean, he has done an unbelievable job with this group. I just see, I've been seeing incremental improvement throughout the course of the season. little things that maybe are not very common. Where they place their head, their hands, their steps, their communication, their heads, like where they're looking, where their eyes are, little things that make such a huge difference in the execution of an offense and the coordination between the 5, 6 of them. And the ability to plug in, play, different guys, to have a true freshman out there at right tackle playing at a pretty high level, and it's not perfect by any stretch. And, where they were, say this time last year, where they are now in terms of their physicalness and their effort is light years. And here's the good news. There's so much room for improvement, right? And look, that was a really good defense. Okay. They gave you some problems with their scheme. They gave you some problems. Those linebackers are really good. We did a really, really good job. And I just can't say enough about how impressed I am with how they're progressing. And that speaks directly to Alex Atkins and how he's training those guys and how he's brought them together as a unit. And in the belief that they're beginning to show. I'm just tickled to death about how they're doing.
Yeah, evidence of the improvement just continues. If you're looking for stats that lets you validate that, Florida State has had 3 scoring drives in a row, 8 plays, 91 yards, 9 plays, 75 yards, 5 plays, 75 yards. And then they had another drive that was 7 plays, 60 yards that they missed a field goal on. But guys, this is an offense last year and early on this year that could not sustain 2 drives. I mean, 2 67-yard drives or more against Miami and Georgia Tech. 2. We've seen 8 in the last 2 weeks of at least 60 yards or more. I think obviously that group is getting confidence. Bob or Jerry, do y'all want to chime in on the offensive line, what you guys are seeing?
Bob, I'll let you go first.
I think similar to what Mark was saying, just hats off to Atkins for what he's done, especially with guys who are in their first year in the program or second year in the program. So he's bringing the pieces together very, very quickly. This isn't a knock on the veteran guys. Alex had to identify the guys that he felt the most confident in. He's rolled them out. He's had to have lineup changes throughout. Darius Washington not having your left tackle and then having to make adjustments and figure out how the pieces fit. That's a pretty considerable adjustment for him to make on the fly these last couple of weeks. Really happy with how this group has progressed. And if they stay healthy, keep these 5 out there, I think we're going to continue to see the same kind of thing, to sustain drives. As Mark has talked about for weeks, the identity of your team is to run and to use Jordan Travis's running and his improvement as a passer. But this offensive line can provide that push that Florida State, I don't think, has had really this good of a push in many years.
Jerry?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's helped them is the last 2 games they've had the same 5 guys in there the whole time.
Correct.
And, with very few, a couple of plays. And we haven't had that in years. We've had a lot of moving pieces on the offensive line. When you look at, as Mark said, they do seem to be getting better and better, and they have room for improvement. As I went back and reviewed that game, we had 2 touchdown drives stop because of Lucas had the 15-yard penalty off the 3-yard line to start the second half, which was crucial. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But and then we had a couple false starts at 1st and goal at the 5. And I think we got a field goal out of one and no points out of the other. So, you can clean those things up. And that's where I go back to Lucas and his issues that he has. The last 2 games when he's done something stupid, with the unnecessary roughness penalty, Atkins pulled him out of the game immediately. And, Norvell talked to him and they sat him on the sidelines for a series or so. And that's critical. That's coaching. And that's what we haven't seen here in a while.
Accountability.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought we saw evidence that was going to happen when we were out there at spring ball. And then of course I think that the way the season started, we started to question what our eyes told us, but we should not have done that. It's what you see is usually the truth. But anyway, yeah, I thought that the game, if they had not gotten that penalty that you're talking about, Jerry, you're up 38, I believe, 7 at the time.
It was a huge momentum bust.
Yeah, because they went right back down the field and scored to make it 28 to 31 to 15. So that was, and then of course you make the field goal, it's still a different ball game. There is no, you can, again, in any game you can if and or but if they had made that field goal to make it 34-7, it totally changed the dynamics at the end of the game. And you're talking about that in the third quarter. But yes, I agree with you totally.
What a great way to be able to make your point about how important it is to play smart football, how important it is to be disciplined and not jump off sides, have all that on film and still win the game.
Well, Mark, I was going to ask you exactly that. All right, this team just beat the 5th-ranked team in the nation, but these coaches have a tremendous amount of tape to teach off of. And, I mean, FSU won against North Carolina did not – it played its best game of the year, but certainly can play better than what it did. How valuable, as a coach, how nice is it to have that commodity? You didn't have to play a perfect game to beat them. You can go in and coach these guys.
I through the years, I've probably taken that for granted, It is so important because we won that game despite all the mistakes. We were far from perfect. We had some big plays, made some great special teams plays, and we had some great individual efforts and some great team efforts. But we were far from perfect. And if we played a perfect game, it's not even close. And that's the thing that's exciting. And that's the thing that as a coach you can say, if we do this, this, and this, we blow these guys out. And that's the truth. And so to be able to sit there and do that and still have a win, it just makes your case. And just, because as a player, you're sitting there and you say, okay, I see the possibilities now. I see it. And that it just lights a fire in you that makes you want to do it. It makes you want to sell out. It makes you want to play for your teammates. All that stuff starts to come together, in a situation like this. And you know what? Looking at our schedule now, I think 2 weeks ago we were looking at the schedule going, where are we going to find 2 more wins, right? Yeah. I think now we're looking and saying, oh, hey, you know what? We're going to give Clemson a good run, Knock on wood.
Hey.
Maybe not that far, but still, you know what I'm saying.
Not going there. I wouldn't mind going back to Notre Dame again and giving that.
Hey, talk about holy knee-jerk reactions, Batman.
I'm not ready to come. I'm not know if I'm going out on that Clemson limb. You're like the guy on SportsCenter the other day that said Boston College is going to challenge Clemson.
Well, Herb Street did say we would. Right.
Well, I hope that's right. Listen, I'd love for him to be right. All right. Now, guys, I think that we've talked about the growth of the program. I think there are 2 drives and that we could probably all give examples of where this team is maturing and how Mike Norvell and his staff are changing the culture of this program. But 2 drives come to mind. One was a great coaching decision on Norvell's part, up 24-7, a little bit over a minute left. In the half, FSU drives 5 plays, 75 yards to go up 31-7. And probably my favorite drive of the game. And I think it defines complementary football and team football to a T, and also shows you just how far this offensive line, this offense have come in such a short time. 13:39 left in the game. FSU starts an 11-play, 53-yard drive that it does not score on, but the defense was not playing well, and it took 6:59 off the clock in the fourth quarter to me, it shows you where this team has gone and where it can go. And we would, this is something I don't think we could have seen the first 2 weeks of the season, and certainly did not see last year. Of course, it's different offense, so may not be necessarily an equal comparison. But to me, that was one of the most crucial drives of the game. And certainly North Carolina only had 2 other drives after that. In fact, FSU also had a 3-play drive that took 2 minutes and 28 seconds off the clock in the fourth quarter. So anyway, to me, that drive, the 11th possession of the game, summed up how far this program has come. Do you guys have any other observations on complimentary football, or where specific examples of where you think this team has grown up a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, blocking the punt and then scoring, right? I mean, taking advantage of that short field in quick fashion. Definitely, to me, is indicative of that. The defense actually was the star of the game early, because we only scored that 1 touchdown in the first quarter. But the defense kept us in it the whole first quarter, and then in the second quarter we exploded for 28 more points. So great example of complimentary football. And in the fourth quarter, it was the offense taking time off the clock. So,
yeah, I would, Pat, I'd agree with you on those 2 drives. I'll add a third. Year 2 was right before the end of the half and in the fourth quarter. But I'll add a third. That first drive of the second half, where we go right down the field and we get the penalty on Lucas, and we scored no points there. But that drive, that tells me that the coaching staff knows how to coach a halftime. That's the second time we've done that. I think we did it at Notre Dame too.
Yeah, we did.
Yep. And so that's very telling, I think, of your offensive staff.
Well, Jerry, I do want to ask you this. You were somewhere in the stadium. I'm not sure whether the varsity club or the Champions Club, but, it felt like, first of all Florida State games should kick off at 7:30 or later in Doak Campbell Stadium. There's something about a night game at Doak Campbell Stadium that's just feels right. And it certainly felt right. It felt like a Seminole Saturday night against North Carolina. Kind of what was it like in the stands, and what was the fan experience like?
Yeah, I sat actually in the bleacher seats this week. I sat on about the 15-yard line, 59 rows up on the west side, and there was a tremendous amount of crowd participation. It was amazing to me. I mean, you only have 14,000 people in there, but it was loud, and everybody was on their feet. That I could tell, very, very engaged. So that was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a highly entertaining game. A little bit stressful at the end, but it is college football, and you got 2 good teams playing against each other, or 2 storied programs. It usually gets that way, and but no, it was fun. It was fun to be in the press box. You could feel the energy from the 18,600 people that were in the stands. I think, Bob, we both noticed it from what we've seen the first 2 football games prior to that.
Yeah, I think also it was a standing ovation. I believe when the team went to the locker room at the half, you could tell throughout there was appreciation for how much fun the fans were having watching the team and knowing that they were putting it on North Carolina and trying to give them a little bit of energy. So it was a fun night. You could tell, I think the fans really appreciated this one, needed this kind of, not just a win, but just a feel-good, fun night to say, hey, let's keep supporting this team. We want to come back and watch them the next time and the next time after that.
Yeah, football is kind of funny. I think all of us have had a major paradigm shift in what we think about this football team compared to what it was 8 days ago when we spoke the last time on Sunday night after the Notre Dame game. Of course, the hard part about college football, you got to get up and do it again. And Florida State heads to Louisville next week for a 12 o'clock game. It's been a game over the years, guys, that has been highly contested no matter where they played. It's been hard-fought games, and Louisville will certainly offer Florida State a challenge up there at a 12 noon kickoff at Cardinal Stadium. And Scott Satterfield's team has been struggling a little bit. But, Mark, what are your thoughts heading into Louisville?
Yeah, putting back-to-back performances in will speak a lot to, how much this team has grown. Not resting on their laurels. I think I texted you guys when we were up. We'll see how we handle prosperity. So, now, everybody, including me, is patting them on the back and, feeling good about themselves. Can you keep the focus moving into the next week and do it again? And that's part of the learning process. The confidence is a huge thing. The fact that you've done it before, that belief sets in that you can do it again. But going on the road, that's a whole nother thing too. So it'll be interesting to see how we respond to success.
Bob?
Louisville's given up a ton of points until this Notre Dame game where it was only 12-7, and you felt like they had a shot to pull one off. So I keep feeling like we haven't seen Louisville's best effort, and we know Satterfield is a really good coach. He maximizes what's on the roster. So it kind of feels like a game where they're going to bring their best effort. And, do they have that big play capability? Tutu Atwell is one of the most fun guys to watch in the conference. I mean, pound for pound, inch for inch, that guy might be 5'8", 5'9", but he is so dynamic and fun to watch at receiver. So it's going to be a fun matchup up there.
Jerry?
Yeah, that's what Mark said about prosperity. When we were celebrating after that game, it was like we had won something, and it's just a game, even though it's a top 5 game. How do you and I'm okay with that. We needed that. But now, have you got enough gas in your tank to refocus on Monday on Louisville and build on what you accomplished? Dealing with prosperity is hard for a team that hasn't had it.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how this is mostly a young football team, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how they handle success and then going on the road to play against a team that's traditionally played them tough and plays tough for its coach, even though they've struggled this year. I don't mind the celebration. Football games are very hard to win, and we have not exactly been rolling through people like Alabama has the last 10 or 12 years. So, since 15 or 16 anyway. So I enjoy it. They're hard to get. And I'm sure those guys were brought back to reality on the practice field this afternoon by Coach Norvell and his staff, because he made mention of it in his press conference. But certainly a fun weekend for Florida State football, and glad that we got to have a positive chat. Happy edition of Seminole Sidelines, which we've been waiting a while for that. And as FSU gets their first win over an FBS program since last November against Boston College, when Jordan Travis first came to Seminole fans' attention, and he's gotten it now. And it'll be fun to continue to watch this team go guys, as we move forward in the schedule into Louisville and beyond. But thanks for joining me, and look forward to catching up again with you later in the week.
Go Noles.
This has been another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. To subscribe to the Osceola, go to theosceola.com. And right now, enter the code FSU20 and get 20% off your annual subscription. That's FSU20. Go Noles.